right, welcome to the Forever Classic Podcast, the show seeking enlightenment through video games, films, and other geek culture. I'm Alex McCumbers, and I've been waiting to say that for quite a while now. I have with me my two best pals, partners in crime in this endeavor, and we've got some updates for you. Mr. Zack Snyder, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a weird year, but a very busy one.
We have been exceptionally busy, especially with a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff for Forever Classic Games. And, of course, we'll get into that here shortly, but I also want to introduce producer Joe. Joe, how are you, friend?
I was unaware that this was considered crime. I'm doing great. I'm having fun. I'm glad to be back and in my role and doing things. But, yeah, basically a year of just, like, building a house, kind of.
Yeah. Prep work.
And getting things set up and just finding time to be able to, and energy to invest in creative endeavors again. And this has definitely been at the top of the list for a while. So, but we have a big old list of announcements. So why don't you give it to us?
Yeah, so a lot of the year of 2021 was spent doing a lot of things, right? Like I moved a couple times. I am in a completely different state of being currently. Zach had his house kind of put together. You built the office and moved into this house, Joe. And so a lot of things have just been not necessarily getting in the way because those things are extremely important, but it has taken precedence as far as that compared to our actual work here on Forever Classic Games. And despite that, we still did a lot of really cool work. We had a couple podcast episodes, especially the Fantasy League one, I think is probably one of my favorites. And we still have a bunch of stuff in the back burner as far as that will get released as legacy content. We have our own Zack Snyder show as far as films are concerned. And so that'll eventually be released still. That's still planned. But Zach and I have been exceptionally busy nailing down our business license. So Forever Classic Games is now Forever Classic Games LLC. And Zach, if you want to talk a little about what that process kind of looked like.
It actually wasn't too hard. I just didn't know anything I was really doing. So basically everything we did for the whole process, we learned from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kind of figured out what we needed to do, who we needed to talk to, if there were any resources we could kind of tap to give us instruction or guidance. And a big one was the Small Business Association Administration, SBA. Anyway, they were really cool. We had a guy, an older gentleman local to here who was real interested in it, and he helped us along the way get everything set up.
Yep.
So we got all of our legal stuff taken care of, all of our paperwork stuff taken care of, official mailing addresses.
We have official business plans, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, so that was interesting, especially setting it up and being like, no, it's not for me, but it's for something I'm going to be using.
Right. And Zach, I do have to thank you for really kind of taking on that, because it's something we've been planning for a long time, but I always kind of thought that rather than me do it, who has very little business sense, and I get kind of really anxious when it comes to making sure those processes are done correctly. I was hoping eventually we would have a business savvy person, and maybe we one day still might. But Zach really took it upon himself to get that going, and once that got spearheaded, we started picking up momentum, and then we've actually had the business license since I think either November or December. And so we've been kind of so a lot sooner than I expected. We have business accounts, we have all these different income paths, and so we're really going to try to make this thing as big as we can with the goal of it being one of our income things, and that way we can actually make better content and do more stuff with it, because at the end of the day we got to pay bills, and that's pretty tough if you're trying to dedicate a lot of time to a full-on media outlet. And so hopefully this will help us achieve those goals. I know personally I would like to just do this, if not full-time, then 90% of the time, and supplement that with a couple freelance projects, because ultimately that's what I'm doing now, is freelancing.
Yeah, same. I would love to be able to do this full-time, just in any capacity of it, front end, back end, whatever.
Yeah, and so to make that happen, we really will need the support of our audiences and the people that have kind of worked with us over the years. We still have a great relationship with a lot of different indie developers as far as getting reviews out there, getting potential interview content. We recently got the II Arcade unit, as well as a bunch of different content for that, and the review is on the docket for that particular unit, and we'll also be covering individual releases on that platform. We've got access to a PS5. I have one of those. So there's a lot of things that we'll be like adding to the general repertoire of what we can cover. And we hope to actually like be able to pay some of our writers and contributors. We have Cinna and Justin, who's been doing awesome work. And I really just want to like get a little bit of money for some clients here and there and make sure we have our subscription stuff kind of situated. That way we can actually like make this a worthwhile endeavor for the people who work alongside us. And so, in general, we'll have more stuff, and that's really exciting. But in order to make this work, we really do need the support of anybody and everybody, whether it's somebody who's been listening to every episode for years or whatever, and versus somebody who's new and coming into the like games media space. But the one thing that you can kind of expect from us is we won't have a lot of clutter on the website still. We will have ad content eventually. But the main goal has always been to never clutter the content. So if we do like a banner, it'll run at the top and bottom of pages rather than throughout an article or as a pop-up. We'll never do pop-ups as long as I'm in charge and Zach is in charge. So there's a couple things that we're still going to like hold out on as far as like our integrity and our like vision of the actual website. But
not a lot of what we were doing already has changed.
No. A lot of the actual content is going to be very similar.
Mostly just figuring how to monetize what we're already doing.
Right, and then just generally do more and be more punctual about various things. Because I know I get caught up with all these other different projects, and so trying to find the time to do Forever Classic stuff is really challenging sometimes. But I want to get into a better habit and just like getting stuff out there. I personally am just in the content creation kind of workflow mentally because my freelance job is I am a esports commentator and media guy for Black Ice Esports here in Minneapolis. And so that's a whole different conversation, but it's been a lot of fun. Needless to say, I'm streaming and creating audio content as a job, so it's just something that's in my workflow already. So I can squeak in an hour or two here and like edit an episode of our podcast or whatever, and that would be fine. Speaking of podcast episodes, we are going to be, with the help of Justin, who is 50% of the Here's Johnny podcast and has been on the show and helps us out with the website and such. He's actually helping us edit some of the legacy like interviews and stuff that we've done over the past couple years. So there's a couple different indie developers that we've covered. There are episodes outside of the Zack Snyder podcast. There's interviews with various people. I got to talk to our buddy Nerd D, Matt Allen, recently at a con, and so that interview will eventually be released. So there's a bunch of stuff that we have that Justin's going to help us with, and we're kind of going to release those interspersed with the actual new podcast schedule, and those will be labeled as like lost episodes or legacy content. They'll be clearly labeled around when they were recorded, so I'll be pretty transparent as far as that goes.
So one of the bigger things, though, is you two have been working on kind of slowly integrating everything over to a new look on the website, right?
Yeah, so the reason we did this is because Squarespace come out with a new version. It's called like 7.2 or something, and we were running on like 7.0 or 6.9 or 7.1. Regardless, Squarespace had a new update, and so a lot of things changed and a lot of new tools opened up. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to grab this new version was because it makes our authors look better. So at the bottom of every single article now is the like little blurb that we have for our author profiles. So it really kind of gives people the option to embrace the content that they've created and really kind of wear that. And so that's one of the main reasons that I really pushed for this change. And there's a couple other things that are worse and some things that are a little better. So we're learning this new system. And there's still some custom stuff we want to do as far as like just site navigation and organization and stuff. But for the most part, like the new version of the website and how we have things organized and how it shows off our authors is a little stronger. And overall, we've changed it to a more dark mode theme. So it's all black and like an off-white. And then anything like a heading or anything is that classic blue that we've been using.
That get there.
I don't know.
That was a test. I don't know how that's there.
What is it?
The age verification pop-up test that I did forever ago showed up as he was scrolling.
Really?
But you can
Well,
just-
eventually
you
we'll
can just
we'll
X
figure
out
out
of
what's
it.
wrong with that.
right after you promised no pop-ups.
Well, so there are some publishers and such that we work with, specifically Capcom is who I'm thinking of. Whenever they release a new trailer for, say, Resident Evil Village, which is very violent and traditionally like extremely mature content, they actually request that you put it behind an age gate. So just make sure that people are at least 18, and so they can view that content. So I do want to eventually honor that request with just a little thing that says, hey, this is mature content. If you're not 18, we kind of recommend you don't look at this or whatever because of publisher agreements or whatever. And so that'll eventually just help us kind of hit the industry standard of sites like IGN and such, because they have to follow those sort of rules too. So eventually we will have that type of pop-up, but that would be the only one.
Very cool.
Yeah, so
Nice
the new
work, guys.
website, I think it just looks really nice, and like I had to manually transfer over like every single post we've ever done. And it took a lot of time and effort, but I did it.
Yeah. We did so much moving of information.
Every single asset, every single line has all been captured. The date was changed to the original publication date. It's all just been moved over succinctly. And so the article posts do kind of get a little bit of organizational use because of that transfer. So tags and categories have been updated. So we have like hardware and PC tabs. We have retro inspired tags, and you can click on those and it'll pull up articles in that type that fit that. The thing that I want to add eventually is currently if you click a tag within news, you only get news articles rather than the entire blog offering. And so we'll figure out how to like get all that kind of succinct. And the author page also works the same way. If you click author, like a name within news, you're only going to get that author's news post. So
Yeah, it's a little
hopefully we can
finagling,
switch
but
over.
we're getting there.
Let's talk about so that's kind of the articles section on the new website. Let's talk about our services tab, which I'm really excited about. And this is kind of the business side of it. So we are basically going to be a catch-all sort of multi-talented sector, so to speak, for the creative industry, specifically the game industry for the most part. So what we're going to be offering is all these different types of services, whether it's writing a company's press release and then distributing said press release. Like this is going to be our main cash flow, hopefully. And so there's a lot of different types of things that we'll be able to do because we're all extremely multi-talented. And we already have like a background in freelancing and working with various types of companies and all that sort of thing. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're an indie dev or you're a publishing company, take a look at our services page because we might be able to help you out with a wide range of projects.
Yeah, just the stuff to kind of alleviate stress that people will have. Companies, we have some stuff for individuals too, but I mean, our focus is still to do gaming companies. But there's little stuff that we excel at that we can take off of other people's hands to give you the time to do more.
Mm-hmm.
And we want you to be able to trust us with it.
The other thing too is we've in all of the language for our services or for our ads, we say, hey, we are transparent with our viewers and listeners and audience in general. So that's something that we're really forward about, and hopefully that'll be a fine enough way to conduct business. I don't see most companies having an issue with it. The only thing where we wouldn't be able to talk about things if we had to sign an NDA. And in that instances, say we got an NDA from Square Enix or whatever, and we're like, hey, we're going to show, like, you're going to be able to capture some footage for the new Final Fantasy 16. You can't show anybody for this long. The way we would then kind of communicate that is we are working with Square Enix on a undisclosed paid project. And so that's the sort of language we would use to make sure that we're keeping that transparency. But NDAs is something we'll still honor. We'll still honor embargoes. We're not going to release anything early. We're really going to try to start hitting embargo dates as far as reviews are concerned. But at the end of the day, we won't release that stuff when it's not supposed to be released. And we'll still be using OpenCritic as well for our main review aggregate.
Yes.
So on the services tab, if you are interested in working with us as a business or as a media outlet in general, as far as sponsored content, whether that's going and visiting your studio or doing sponsored interviews, those sort of things, the only thing that we won't sponsor is an actual published review from us. But all that information is available on our services tab. There's Q&As, there's various policies, there's a breakdown of how you can inquire about various types of business that we'll be doing, and then all of that is also kind of threaded through our contact page. And so the main way to contact us is still the Forever Classic Podcast at gmail.com for most people, but we also have a new website for businesses, which is business@foreverclassicgames.com.
Very cool. Again, excellent work, you guys. You guys have put in a lot of work. And the number of times I've been like, hey, what you up to? And you're like, I'm migrating articles and reviews to the new website. And it was months of you sitting there doing that while waiting for phone calls or meetings with your work and stuff, or watching a show or something. You were just kind of just sitting there, copying and pasting things over, making sure it had all the correct tags and author and information and all that. So just want to commend the two of you on that side of things.
Yeah, Zach did a really excellent job of setting up the kind of framework and format, and then I just moved all the content over and rearranged it and made it look nice. So again, Zach is kind of the spearhead on this project. He really pushed through and got the foundation so that we could actually get it done. And so without him, we wouldn't have this.
And that's why I've been real quiet for a long time.
Yeah. We've been busy in the background. I have all sorts of articles that need to be published this week for this website. And I just told one of our authors right now, I'm I'll get back to you. I'm super busy right now. I'm in the middle of a podcast. We'll get into that later. But yeah, that kind of summarizes the new website. So it's still foreverclassicgames.com. I just moved over the URL. And so you can reach us just how you would before. If you find an old tweet or something with a broken link, let me know. But all of our links should still work because of the way I moved over URLs, which was also an arduous process. But it as far as I can tell, it worked.
Yep. Basically, we just moved the domain to our new site. So all the old links should just redirect to what we have now, not what was then.
Right.
There'll be some exceptions maybe on articles having a different string, ID string at the end of it in the big ass article thing. But
if you catch a mistake, let us know. In general. So let's actually pivot this conversation to Joe, who has been our producer for the past couple years. And Joe has actually taken it upon himself to really get the regular podcast schedule into line. So Joe, tell us a little bit about what we're going to be doing for the regular podcast.
So the main thing is after taking basically a year off, and then things prior to that being somewhat spotty in terms of consistency, just taking all things into considerations, everyone's schedules and things like that, without, burning people out or making things seem overwhelming. We, settling into a bi-monthly, so 2 times a month, not every other month, but 2 times a month releasing episodes and then streaming the recordings like we are right now. I think the second and fourth week is kind of what we're shooting for, and then the podcast episodes would come out within 2 weeks of the stream. So everything will be, if you're listening to this on a podcatcher, it's this typically happened within the last 2 weeks. So basically, it's my job to make sure everyone has what they need. The first episode of each month is going to be just a general video games update, talk, and discussion. And then the second episode of each month is going to be a little bit more specialized, like personal interest. So, for example, if one of us has been super into like modding Game Boys and wants to like show off some of the modifications that they've done to a Game Boy and talk about that sort of thing, or bring on a guest that knows a lot about that sort of topic to learn more about it. So for those more niche personal interest, that second episode is going to be reserved for that, and each one of us will be trading off and taking turns driving those episodes, whereas the first episode of each month is going to be all three of us just kind of having a discussion about what's happening in the gaming space and what we're excited about, what we're playing, and that sort of things, provided something else doesn't just like happen that we feel like we need to discuss and talk about. But yeah, that's what you can kind of expect from us on the podcast end of things, and on the streaming, our talk show podcast recordings side of things. I'm going to be driving that, and then the next thing outside of that, but still in this space, on my end, is coming up on January 19th at 8 p.m. Central United States. Is last year we did the Fantasy Critic stream, where I think there was like 8 of us got together and did Fantasy Critic League, where we, drafted our first 6 picks for the year of what games we think were going to be the best, that we get points throughout the year. Last year was pretty fun. But coming up on January 19th at 8 p.m., we're going to do 2022. And I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll find out then what stakes are on the line, I think, because that's what we did last year, where people were like, yeah, I'll bet $20. Like, yeah. So now, and we'll announce the winners of last year at that point, and go over any new rules or any expectations or things that might change this time around as we learned about it last year. So that's, I think, the end of the announcements on my end. So unless you guys have anything, we can.
So in addition to the bi-monthly podcast episodes that you're kind of putting together, anything legacy or like special we can release outside of that schedule, so to speak. So if we suddenly come into an interview, like that might get posted throughout in between those episodes, especially some of the stuff that we're working on just editing and getting out the door. The other thing with Twitch in general is we do plan on just having more streams overall. As you can see, I've got a new green screen behind me here, so I picked up the Elgato portable kit. I've got an Elgato face light of some sort that I picked up on sale. I would love to have a second one, by the way. And then, in general, like, we just have a bunch of games that we would love to play and hang out with the people on the stream. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to be on Twitch a little more, especially with me it like becoming one of my regular things that I do on my day job. I'm like a lot more capable on camera now than I was a year ago. I'm used to it at this point.
Yeah, you've done a lot of stuff on camera live with your commentary. Yeah. And you've definitely gotten better at it since you started. So kudos.
Thank you. And hopefully we'll do some traveling as well. I know I have a fighting game tournament that I'll be covering at the end of the month. So I will be attending Frosty Faustings, provided it doesn't get canceled or something changes. And then there's potential for me to go to the Game Developers Conference with another client. And hopefully we'll make it to a PAX or something this year. Like, I would love to do some traveling, but of course, health is always a major concern. So when those things are canceled, I'm personally fully vaccinated and I got a booster. So at the very least, I'm as safe as I can be with it. But regardless, I would love to do some more events, and hopefully we'll have the capability to do some online events regardless. But with that in order, let's just get into chatting about some games, fellas.
Yes.
Games?
Games.
So, 2021 was overall an interesting year, I think. Because there was some bangers.
Agreed.
Like, like you always see those posts where like, man, 2003 was the best year in gaming, and then it shows like of the best 10 games that came out this year, and it's like, well, you could do that for literally any year.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun this year with the games that came out, and then I was also able to go back and visit some of the games I missed in 2020. And but what was the best games that you played that came out in 2021?
Zach, you want to start that one, man?
So for me, one of the, I guess the two favorite games from, well, three favorite games, I guess. There were three that I really enjoyed playing, and they were all at different periods. So early in the year was Loop Hero and Monster Hunter Rise. Really loved those.
I hear a lot about Loop Hero. People are really like adding that to their production, where they like set it and forget it and kind of interact with it every now and again. Is that kind of how you're playing it?
That's exactly how I'm playing it. Because at first I was playing it really like hands-on, like trying to micromanage every move, and now you can set it to pause at the end of every loop instead of just automatically going. So your character will do a loop because you can't do anything once the loop starts. You can pause it and you can like make some inventory adjustments, but you can't do any other stuff for the most part.
Sure.
Slap some cards down on the run if you want something specific, but honestly, you can just let it go loop, see where you look like health wise and item wise, mess with your stuff when you come back to it, and then tell it to start again. And it's just you constantly get the farm, that way you can get into the where you're really concentrating on a run to get to the boss, to get to the next stage.
Feels like a great compliment for people looking to fill up downtime in their like regular computer activities. It kind of feels like the Minesweeper of 2021.
Yeah, and I mean it's on Switch now too, so
Mm.
and it has a sweet animated trailer that came out with the Switch launch.
Ooh, fun.
I think
Yeah.
that was one of the free games that Epic offered. Like they had the daily giveaway or whatever over the Christmas season, and I think
been.
Loop Hero was one of those games.
I missed
that one.
3 days of it, and it would have definitely fallen on one of those days then. But
Fair
it was
enough.
awesome. It's super solid, super fun to come back to. Of course, Monster Hunter Rise,
Yeah.
awesome. Monster Hunter, especially getting. I've started hunting again to get kind of back into the rhythm for Sunbreak.
I think that's what it's called. I'll fact check you.
That's coming out what, in the summer?
Yeah, Sunbreak is slated to come out around the summer, I believe. The PC version of Rise comes out in like a day or two.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feature crossplay or cross progression, which makes it a no buy for me, unfortunately. I might,
Same.
I don't know. If it goes on sale, I'd consider it, but.
And then closer to the mid end of the year, favorite game that I've been waiting for a long time was Back 4 Blood.
Okay.
And I know it's been met with lots of criticism, like back and forth, and as it's been fixed, new and then new praises, like it's been all over the board for like people loving it and hating it. But I got it for my little brother for Christmas. He was real stoked because me and him look at it the same way. It's Left 4 Dead 3 now that they're away from Valve, and it's just a whole new adventure. Like maybe the game wouldn't have evolved into this, but you know what? It's fun as shit, and they haven't done any DLC stuff for it yet at all. They just did the winter event where you got a winter cosmetic from doing supply points, and now getting ready for their season pass sort of thing. So they're going to release at least 3 DLCs through the year and into the beginning of next year, maybe. Give them that little cushion because you never know if things get delayed.
Yeah, I'm really glad to see that they're not like just seemingly discouraged from some of the mixed reviews and criticisms that came upon its release, because there were some like issues with like the difficulty and sometimes the way that the special infected would come into play would get broken, and then suddenly you would have like 30 of them just pop in out of nowhere, and then you would just get destroyed. But it sounds like that hasn't deterred them at all, and they're pressing onward with their plan because they're confident in their product. It just needed some tweaks.
Yeah, and they've been tweaking it. They did their winter update did a huge rebalancing of like their card system. So like if you had like overpowered builds, like a lot of it got tweaked to where you had to completely change what you were doing, but you could still do the same kind of concept.
Okay.
Mostly fixing like people speed running, not speed running so to say, as much as speed breaking AI, because you could
Going
have one
through
person,
exploits and such.
yeah, kind of like really messing up the AI with speed. So they've moved it down to where it actually feels like you're going through an adventure, not just running a level for just running through the motions.
Mm-hmm. Cool. You guys have both played that. I've yet to play it. Around that time, I jumped into World War Z just to scratch that itch, kind of. And we just got access to an early access game that's also kind of a wave-based one called Anacrusis. So hopefully you might see that on stream sometime soon. Justin has a copy, so we have 4.
All right.
Yeah,
I was definitely curious how you said that. Oh, I hadn't heard it pronounced yet.
Yeah, that's how I say it, I guess. And then Joe also, we all have copies of GTFO. You got to like visit their actual offices in, what was it, San Diego?
I went to San Francisco, and
San Francisco.
was at the Unity offices.
Oh, okay.
And the 10 Chambers team, who is based out of, I believe, Sweden, were there hosting all these people from media and showing off the game, the 1.0 release, which was the 1.0 release happened during the Game Awards, so that was kind of like a big deal for them. But yeah, it's a kind of a smaller team, more of an indie project. It's been in an early access for a long time. And then 1.0 came out towards the beginning of December, and I've been having a ton of fun with it. It's got some like interesting things that I wasn't sure of when I first started playing. Like there's these terminals that you have to actually go to and type in commands, like old school PC commands.
Yeah,
and
like a
I was
DOS
like,
or something.
I was like, oh man, this seems like some tedious gameplay BS. But in the end, I think that it really adds to it, because while you're doing the terminal, your buddies have to like watch your back. And so like, because the game doesn't stop while you're at the terminal, so if something happens, they got to like communicate with you and be like, hey, get off that terminal and come help us kill some stuff. But yeah, it's very claustrophobic, very more like kind of horror centric or thriller centric. It's very like, it's a slow grind getting through it, but it's also very satisfying when you do, because the whole intention was in an era where things like Dark Souls are super popular. People are enjoying difficult games. But the shooter genre hasn't really dived into that quite.
Not as much. Not for a while.
Right,
like, we had the really extreme tactical shooters. Like, I think Rainbow Six might have even fit into that at one point in its career. But yeah, those are kind of like by the wayside. Yeah,
but so this is kind of coming in to kind of fill in that space a little bit, but on a cooperative level. The game isn't basically impossible without all four players up. So
yes, it is.
If one of you goes down, you can't abandon them and make progress. You have to go back and rescue them. And then once
I kind of wish that the GTFO like pacing and idea was applied to the Aliens franchise, because we got Aliens Fireteam Bravo or whatever, and that game is like fine if you're really into that franchise, but it's not the type of like, it's a completely different type of co-op shooter.
Yeah, but just like talking to the devs and stuff, their entire model for this game is if they're working on something and it doesn't like support the idea of cooperative gameplay, or if it takes away from that idea, they scrap it completely or change it so that it does like support that idea of cooperative gameplay. And then but yeah, the big things with the 1.0 release was being able to bring in bots and improving that AI, improving the visuals and just general quality of life things. They added checkpoints, which was, I think, generally received favorably because the game is freaking hard. But there were like other players that were a bit pretentious in it and saying, well, their biggest feature now makes the game too easy, or it is to appeal to the masses. And I'm like, well, they do have to make money. Like if they make it too hard, people won't buy it or play it, and there are longevity. But they're constantly going to be releasing new content, and as they release new runs, old runs will be filtered out. So as you keep playing the game, it'll be constantly a new flow of content and things to do, so that the community at large is always trying to solve the same problems rather than replaying old problems.
Which I have issues with, and that's kind of one of the general trends that has come in the past 5 years or so, is content that is temporary. I think that a lot of developers are really like preying on the FOMO kind of concept. And so I personally kind of struggle with that, but I like the idea that it's like one big community puzzle. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, I think the key element is very little of it is narrative based, and they're not charging you money for access like regular
to the new stuff.
Like yeah,
right,
so you buy the game, you have access to it all as it comes out, and you
Sure.
can kind of catch up narratively by reading about it and things like that. But basically, you're 4 prisoners in this underground facility, and you're trying to GTFO.
Yeah. Is it 4? I thought it was 3.
It's
You
four.
know, it's 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But that's something that a
Yeah.
couple of, like, one of my old buddies from high school has been playing that. Joe's wearing the hoodie, for our audio listeners. But, yeah, one of the best moments I remember playing in a multiplayer shooter was, I think, one of the Halloween events. Me and Zach played Fortnite. And it was like you had to capture a dance spot and dance on it for so long. And that was like the most fun I've ever had with Fortnite. And you can't play that shit anymore. And that bothers me.
Oh yeah, this is a little bit different than that.
Yeah.
Because they just don't want people just replaying the same level over and over and over again and getting up in the ranks and stuff like that. They want it, like their intention is this is an ever evolving like progression of the game as a whole, more similar to like how sometimes like an MMO might move forward with events and content and things like that. Yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. Learning the ropes and like getting through some of those like really difficult things and like figuring out what to do.
There's a lot of crossover in the games that we played this year because I think because me and Joe live together, we're always kind of trying to find things that we can do together, whether it be watch a movie or play a game and that sort of thing. So when Monster Hunter came out, all 3 of us played Monster Hunter, like a bunch. Probably less than we did Monster Hunter World, though. If we actually like had the numbers in front of us, which is unfortunate. But like Zach's saying, gearing up for the new expansion pack, maybe that'll bring us back. It could be a regular thing that we do on stream again. I would happily jump back into some Monster Hunter. But that game really like impressed me on a way that it just runs extremely well on the Switch. I just wish that it had like just a little bit more fidelity or something. I don't know, like something about it. I want that like that same Monster Hunter World style world and gameplay and presentation, but I want it on the Switch as well. And I want all that cross progression to work because I want to play it on everything.
Got to get that Steam Deck.
I'm really hoping that whatever Monster Hunter they do beyond Rise has crossplay because that's a feature that if you don't have, you're missing out on customers, in my opinion.
Yeah, particularly like on cross-platform games or limited platform where it's on one for a while and then comes to others later.
Sure.
Like, particularly if PC comes later, people want to carry their progress over and play on a more powerful hardware, but then, grab their Switch and go over to someone's house or on a trip and still be able to make progress on the same account.
And especially with a game like Monster Hunter, like it's really hard for me to justify creating a new account.
I
if
gotta
they
put in
had
another 100 hours.
If they had crossplay for Rise on PC, it would be one of my most anticipated releases of 2022, honestly. And that sucks. But all in all, Monster Hunter is still really good. And you can still go back and play Monster Hunter World, and there's a bunch of great content and stuff there. But when it comes to Capcom, they've been killing it. I've played Resident Evil Village, and it's probably one of my favorite experiences of the 2021 releases. That game is ridiculously cool. It's still first person, obviously. We've talked about this game a lot, but it has this, like, Universal Monsters thing kind of going on, and, like, a rogues gallery of villains that you fight, and it's just extremely memorable. Parts of it are better than others. There's a scene inside of a dollhouse that is terrifying. Like, it is a crazy cool game, and I can't wait for the DLC update for it. But here's the thing, too. I played that on PS4. I thought it was great. Now I have the PS5, and it gave me the free upgrade to it. So I kind of want to replay it again when the new DLC hits.
Ooh, that sounds exciting, actually.
Yeah. I still haven't played the DLC for Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's actually on my list of things to complete, hopefully this week, because it's a game I've been putting off for a long time. Finally picked up a copy. I'm ready to sit in and be a ninja and steal people's materia. Like, I want that.
So, for me, I think it was like March or so, kind of early in the year, a little indie game, like very Undertale-ish, came out called Everhood, which kind of featured
crazy.
Which, featured the kind of like, kind of simple graphic style, similar to Undertale, with like stark black backgrounds with like colored lines on top. And then the big change for like the combat was rhythm based. You would have the lanes coming towards you, and you'd have to jump over or dodge things, and then later on you get a reflect ability to reflect attacks back at enemies, and that's how you defeat them. You either outdance them, survive the encounter, or you take their health down to 0. And it definitely is drawing that inspiration from Undertale with like kind of some of the philosophical questions of what your choices in game mean. But I don't think it really offers you too many choices. It's somewhat of a linear.
Not really.
It's kind of a linear experience overall, but it does make you kind of like contemplate the story itself.
It's extremely memorable.
There's
ass gnomes.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I won't spoil anything, but if you do come across a long hallway,
just go.
Yeah, just stick with it. It does end. That's like, I will promise you, it does end. It just will take a long time, and it's worth exploring. One of my highlights of the year was sitting there next to Alex going, I don't know if this hallway ends. And then like,
because we both had copies. Like, you did the review for Maruna's Rock, I did it for Forever Classic, and like we were just uncovering this. It was literally sent to us like somebody on Twitter. I forget the PR rep, but he's like, I've got a weird game, and I think you'll like it. And it's really special, but I can't tell you much more about it. And I'm like, all right, well, hit us with a couple copies. And it like sat on my library for a day or two, and Joe like fired it up, and he's like, this is actually kind of cool. And like, so together we were playing through it and like uncovering this, because of course there's no guides.
Yeah, I think I blew through it in like a few days.
Yeah,
like once I was in it until I was done, and it's not super long. I think like 15,
like
16
10
hours.
Like, yeah, give or take.
I think mine was longer because of the hallway, and then you didn't feel the need to do it on yours.
Right.
But no, it's just like super unique, super fun little like rhythm based like RPG kind of game. It's super fun. Yeah. And
fair warning, if you are photosensitive to flashing lights, be careful with this one. It's very disorienting.
Pretty intense. But I missed the Undertale like craze. At this point, I don't think I would draw a ton of enjoyment out of playing it, because I've seen so many playthroughs and I've seen so many references. I listened to the soundtrack; it's great, but I don't think I would get as much out of playing the game as I would have if I had played it when it first came out. And this felt a lot like, ooh, I'm getting in on the early like release of this game. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, it still has yet to take off in the same way Undertale did. But at some point, I think, like, a crowd is going to discover it, and it's going to take off. The right streamer will find it. And
it's going to get rediscovered by these kids on TikTok or something, and then it's going to get 1 million sales. Yeah.
Hopefully. I think they deserve it. It's a great game.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
But the biggest surprise for me gaming-wise this year, and I know that technically there are better games that I played this year that came out in 2021, but in terms of just pure fun, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is at the top of my list this year. Like, I was not expecting that going in. I was just like, all right, here's some classic Pokemon. I'm going to play it with my daughter. And then suddenly I put in like 50, 60 hours over the course of a month, and I was like, oh, I've really had fun with this. Especially coming off of the fact that I was somewhat, like, underwhelmed by Sword and Shield.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I picked up Sword and Shield, and I keep wanting, like, a good Pokemon experience, which is why I've actually started exploring the indie Pokemon space. There's, like, Nexomon and Disc Creatures and Koromon, I think, that are all kind of in the same, like, what if an indie Pokemon thing existed. Temtem's another one. And so I'm kind of exploring that genre right now, but like, it's cool that you had such a good time with Shining Pearl, because I liked Pearl growing up.
Yeah, I remember having fun with it. It came out in high school. That was the game I got back into Pokemon, because for a while I kind of had that like peer pressure of Pokemon's for kids for like, so I missed all of Gen 3
Sure.
basically, and then got a DS, and then all my friends were like, I'm thinking I'm going to pick up the new Pokemon game, and I was like, really? I'm like, okay, I'll grab it. I liked Pokemon. It might be kind of fun. A bunch of teenage guys hanging out playing Pokemon together, this like kid game, and then we all ended up loving it. Pretty much everyone I knew grabbed Diamond, and I was like, well, I'm going to grab Pearl then. And then everyone wanted to trade with me. So that worked out in my favor. But yeah, I think the return to like a more classic formula worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
There were
I will never ever like get the same feeling probably of playing Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Like that game really struck a chord with me because I loved the original releases so much.
But yeah, after Sword and Shield, and then like it's already a $60 game, and it felt like it was lacking content, and then they sold the DLC on top of it, and I'm like, I've already purchased 2 copies of this game because when I buy it, I buy 2 copies, one for me and one for my daughter, so that we can play together and do trades and battles and stuff. And we do, in fact, do that, and it's a lot of fun. I enjoy that experience. I value that experience. But coming off of like Sun and Moon, where the game was $40 and included more content and more Pokemon, it just felt like they were really phoning it in by suddenly it's $60 and it has less content.
We'll see how Pokemon Legends Arceus comes out, which is an early 2022 release that I think a lot of people are curious about.
Yeah.
I'm definitely curious about it.
Yeah, speaking of early releases, Destiny is getting a big update sometime soon, and Zach is the only person in our group that really hammers into Destiny. So, what are you feeling about that stuff, man?
So I just started picking it back up with Toast recently, and we found out that a bunch of the people we play Neverwinter with play Destiny when they're not playing Neverwinter. Like, it's their break game that they play equal amounts of time into, basically.
Yeah.
They went over and they started, like, the clan system still going, and they basically have just found a bunch of other people from different guilds and stuff in Neverwinter, and we're like, yeah, oh yeah, you play? Like, fuck it, come join our clan. So there's just this big amalgamation of the same people in a whole nother game, all still cooperating the same, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
It looks really nice. I personally just picked up the Beyond Light, so I haven't played through the campaign or got like my stasis set up yet. I don't see anybody that I play with really love using any of the stasis stuff unless they're a hunter and they're using the like hunter gets a special ice tornado that's pretty nasty. And that's awesome. It's exciting to see the stranger back and all of those things, but I don't know what it's going to be leading into Witch Queen, because I don't know what's really going on for the most part.
A lot of the people in our circles, like I know Leanna Ruppert, who was recently a Game Informer staff member, has switched over to Bungie, and she's really excited about the Witch Queen content. So, and she was excited before she worked for Bungie.
The biggest thing I'm excited for is seeing the small gameplay on Hive Guardians, or the Hive's version of Guardians, because it showed him into a big fight in the trailer, and then it showed a ghost pop up and revive that enemy. So it's the Guardians having to fight these enemies that can also be rezzed like them, but then having to actually kill these ghosts to actually finish their opponents. So
It'd
I'm
be
really
cool if
interested
they
in
started
that.
adding like Forsaken playable characters, Hive playable characters. I think that'd be a really interesting way to shake up Destiny.
I'm really surprised they haven't added another race yet, especially with House of Light, the Elixni coming into the fold in the storyline. So I'd love to see more.
Yeah.
The most fun thing though right now is the 30th anniversary stuff going on. Everybody gets Gallarhorn back, but you don't have to buy it, but you can't have it unless you buy it. Kind of sad about that. We're just really enjoying the new thing that came with it called Dares of Eternity. And it's creepy ass Xur and a cosmic horse. And the horse neighs to him, and he tells us what the horse is talking about as a game show host. His whole thing is that's just a big cosmic multi-dimensional game show.
Weird.
It's really
It almost
trippy.
sounds like something that would be more at home in like Borderlands than in Destiny.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't expecting game show because he's really monotone and doesn't really. He has like choppy voice and stuff, like when he talks, like awkward pauses, and he's this game show host for the malevolent Star Horse.
Well, didn't they add Halo weapons to a recent Bungie update too?
Yep, that's the same one.
Yeah, okay, that's awesome. I really like that feature. That's cool as shit.
Yeah, the one I particularly like is their like BXR, some sort of string of numbers battle rifle. So it's a pulse rifle, but it's the battle rifle, and its perk for the gun frame specifically is that it fires extremely well from hip fire, just like if you were running around hip firing in Halo instead of being scoped in.
Cool.
So it has that same feeling. You're just running around, and it's the same deal.
In that same vein of Destiny, kind of building off that, Warframe apparently got a new story expansion in the end of December. So I kind of want to jump in and like maybe see if Warframe's cool again, because I love how that game plays. I love how it looks. I don't like the structure of it at all. But then I picked up Halo Infinite on Game Pass, which actually might be run out by now. I might need to just straight up buy a copy. But I'm really enjoying like just playing free to play Halo multiplayer. Me and Zach played some and had a great like hoot and holler of a time.
Yeah, we had a really good tear too for like one of the first times we played.
Yeah, they brought back that event that we were playing before with the randomized weapons, and you can get cool samurai armor. So if you want to play that at some point, let me know.
I'm waiting for the cooperative to come to the campaign, and then I'll probably dive back into Halo Infinite more.
But generally, Halo on PC with keyboard and mouse is like extremely satisfying for me. My skill level immediately jumped up like 6 notches, because I'm used to playing first-person shooters with mouse and keyboard, and so all of those skills just translated right into Halo, and suddenly I was good at Halo.
And I'm the opposite. I've been playing it with only the controller.
Yeah, which I know people who play with controller and still having a ton of fun.
So, what are some games that we played in 2021 that didn't necessarily come out in 2021? That's just when we happened to play it.
I'll tell you the best game on the PS5. Period. Like, in general, and it's free. Astra's Playroom is the most delightful experience in games I have ever had.
It really does, like, watching you play and playing a little bit myself, it really does tap into that, like, joy and wonder of having a new console. Like opening it up for the first time and having a game to play with it that just shows off all those features. Just
That's what it feels like.
You're like,
it's
technology
so cool.
is so cool. And
they do. They use all the DualSense features. It's extremely cute. It's a celebration of PlayStation, which I have just adored for most of my life.
Like almost every piece of it is covered in some sort of reference to something in Sony's PlayStation past.
It's so satisfying. Oh my goodness, that game's incredible.
Didn't you platinum it?
No, but I got all the like
collectibles?
100% items. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's most of a platinum, most cases.
Yeah.
Usually. I mean, I just quote unquote platinumed Ender Lilies on the Switch. I got all the achievements on that. It's a Metroidvania. It's we'll talk about it on another podcast probably, but I'll have a review for it eventually.
Yeah, I platinumed Miles Morales a couple days ago.
Yeah.
All I had to do was finish a New Game Plus run, and I had just finished playing through it, and I was like, I don't know if I want to play through it again right away. So I sat on it for a while, and then skipping all the cutscenes and not doing any side content, threw it on easy at level 30 with all the unlocked like items and like abilities and stuff. Fly through it, and
just cruise.
It was a good time though. I love the Spider-Man games.
I want to revisit that on the PS5 with the new, like, even though it's weird to me that they changed the character model for Peter Parker, like, it's been long enough that I kind of forget what that guy looked like anyway, so I can come back to it and replay both of them.
I believe my copy of Miles Morales, though it is PS4, does have the PS5 upgrade, so we could install it and see what it looks like there. Mm-hmm. But the other one that I played last year, I heard that it was good, had it on my list for a while, but I found a physical copy on Switch, played it, 10 out of 10 game, Hades. Yep. Love that game. Everything in it is just so good. The soundtrack is on my liked playlist on Spotify. I normally don't like roguelikes, but I loved this because the mechanic of going through it over and over is built into the narrative of the story, which is just genius, which I think is what makes it a good game for people who don't like roguelikes. Because I've heard other people call it that, the roguelike for people who don't like roguelikes. But the story is compelling. The combat is exceptional. There's tons of variety in weapons and abilities and boons and things. You sometimes just get on a tear with a specific build and you just have a blast, and then other times you just don't get lucky at all and you just are struggling the whole way, but you still somehow manage to like get to the end. And it's constantly evolving. I hope they maybe release some sort of other content for it. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I did roll credits on it on a type of game I normally want. It's one of like 3 games I would give a perfect score to.
That's awesome. I have been putting it off for a long time. I've had it installed on my PC through the Epic Store for months. And it's one of those games that, like, I know that I am going to absolutely love this game.
And it supports crossplay or cross-save.
I also know that I will spend a crap ton of time on it. And so I've been avoiding it because I've had other projects that take precedence. There's other games I want to play. I don't know if I have the ability to just dump 100 hours into Hades, because that's what'll happen.
The same reason for me. I got it way before it released. Like, it was in its early access, early everything.
Sure.
And I just never actually got to play it. And then Joe found it and was explaining how excited he was. And I was excited somebody else found it. I didn't even realize it had come out of its early access stage, and it was awesome.
It was in that stage for at least a couple years, and they really like fine-tuned the game alongside the community. Like, that entire development story is fascinating.
And like things like the fact that I think it got a couple of like nominations, or at least one nomination for voice acting awards.
It won so many awards.
And what's surprising about that, though, is that it is entirely driven by the performance of the actors. Because there isn't like animation supporting cutscenes or dialogue. It's just the character portrait and then the text on screen, like the dialogue boxes.
That's cool.
So the fact that you're enjoying these performances on just their voices alone, without any supporting like really motion or anything going into it, is like they deserve every accolade they got from their performances in this game, because everything's just spot on. And like it's one of those games that's easy to pick up and play for like a little bit, 1 or 2 runs. Like one run is roughly like 30 minutes. And so if you've got 30 minutes, it's a game you can pick up and just like have a go at it. The problem comes when you have a go at it, suddenly your 5 goes in, and but you know, there were times throughout the year where I've set it down and didn't pick it up for like 2 months. Yeah. And then I would pick it up again. And
yeah, like we'd be hanging at the cabin, and like we would bring games and board games and books and stuff with us, obviously. And every now and again I'd look over and you'd be playing Hades. And I think I was even there when you beat Hades for the first time.
Well, you were present, but you were sleeping. Yeah. Everyone was sleeping, and I beat it, and I go, and I like look around, and everyone's asleep, and I can't like shout in like celebration because I don't want to wake people up.
Because it's like 3 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah. But it was definitely like a high of gaming this summer. Was my beating Hades for the first time, and then continuing to beat Hades enough times to roll credits on it was just super satisfying. But one of my concerns was like, oh man, I haven't played this game in like 3 months. Am I gonna like be able to like jump back in, because it's kind of a difficult game. It's like, but because of the way everything's set up, it's so much easier to jump into than something like Dark Souls, where like, because you always
there's so much minutia in Dark Souls. Like you're really studying like very, very small details to get
even
ahead.
Narratively, like, oh shit, what direction do I need to go in? Like, or what was I doing? Or, you know, what button is the block button again? But I never had that with, no matter how long it was between like my sessions, I was able to jump back in. And I think some of it is because you always jump back in at the beginning, right? So you have that first world to kind of like break back into and get that muscle memory back into place. And
speaking of, I played a lot of
game.
Demon Souls on PS5 and really, really enjoyed that experience, but would I'd stay up for 12 hours at a time playing this game. I really, really enjoyed it. The issue that I have with it is it's just hard. And it's got the original From Software hard kind of baked into it. So I'm I like it, but I would love to have some co-op help. And the only person I know is Justin, and he's been very busy at the end of the year. And so hopefully we'll get around to that one of these days. As soon as they release a 60 FPS or whatever for Bloodborne, I would love to go back to Bloodborne because that world is super cool. But speaking of beating things for the first time, this past year I beat Chrono Trigger for the first time on the Super Nintendo. Kind of. I played the Wii U version of the Super Nintendo ROM, and it was an experience. It was really cool. And the reason for doing that was I wrote an essay that will soon be released in an actual physical book. So Brett Weiss is doing another series of essays and recollections and just kind of retrospectives on a set year. And this book should come out, I think, by this summer. But Brett Weiss is also the guy who did the SNES Omnibus that I was in. He did the NES Omnibus. And so this essay is going to be featured in the new book. And it's about Chrono Trigger, and I'm really excited for it. And Joe helped.
Yeah, because I think you also put a little bit of time into the DS version that I had too, right?
I think I rolled basic credits on the DS version. So I played a lot of Chrono Trigger for 2 months.
Yeah.
A lot of contemplation. I'm actually reading the Boss Games publications about Chrono Trigger. It's got a hedgehog on the cover, which I think is really funny because it makes it look like Lavos. It's a really cool little book so far.
Yeah,
but I've read their Final Fantasy V one, and I think I mailed the Metal Gear one to Zach.
Yeah, it's sitting right over there.
Yeah, so that series of books. I love reading about games. I just recently was looking at my Yoshitaka Amano art book and realized there's enough text there to actually read as a book. And so I'm I've got it sitting on my coffee table now. I'm okay, now I can read this. I've read a lot of books this year, man. I read Dune. I read The Shining.
Yeah, Zach, you already mentioned Loop Hero a little bit as a game that you played in 2021. Did that come out in 2021?
Yeah, March.
Okay.
Switch version came out recently, too.
Okay.
Switch version just came out recently as well.
Yeah.
So both releases were in the same year.
Okay.
I haven't beat it because it also was very hard and very RNG based when you start getting into some stuff.
So were there any other games that that you played in 2021 but didn't necessarily come out that year that you think are worth mentioning?
I mean, if I had to mention one for sure, I would mention Animal Crossing with its DLC for Happy Home Paradise.
Sure.
Was a huge expansion, added Brewster, everybody was excited. And it's kind of like the end of what they were adding, but there's still so much going on. And you get to play with all your villagers. You get to customize their houses. You get to customize shops and amenities on the Happy Home Paradise Island. And then after a while, you can take it back to your own island and start customizing your residents' houses for them. So
cool.
So instead of having the stock that they come with and maybe the things that you gift them, you can build your own paradise island that you think would suit your villagers the best and yourself. And it's really cool.
Did they make a lot of adjustments to the general UI and mechanic set? Can you just walk up to a thing and cross the river with the pole, or do you still have to go to your inventory, equip the pole, hit the thing?
You still have to have the tool that you're going to use in hand. But there are, of course, still, if your river's not very wide, you can still just do the little bunny hop across it.
Sure, yeah. There's a couple things that Animal Crossing does that I wish they would fix that would really make it a much more enjoyable experience overall, I feel. And that would be one of them, is just being able, if I have the tool in my inventory, or if I just have a separate inventory for general tools, I feel like that'd be better.
But Alex,
this is why Stardew Valley exists. Is it? But I don't know.
It is definitely about going slow.
Yeah, y'all love your Animal Crossing, and I get it. I tried.
Yeah, little. I put in my time. I put in probably about 50, 60 hours sharing an island with Little Gamer, and then I was just kind of done. Yeah. I haven't felt a much need to go back. Even my wife bought a Switch and a copy of the game so that they could have their own island, and not have to worry about like our island or sharing it or whatever.
Right.
Put in probably close to like 150, 200 hours in it, and then 6 months later sold the game and the Switch. It was just like, all right, well, I've put in my time. But Little Gamer still plays it almost daily.
Yeah, she likes it.
That routine of going through and doing those things or coming up with new creative ideas or rearranging the furniture. I mean, I guess it's kind of like a digital like set of doll houses.
Sure.
And like it's a play space to decorate and do things and create clothes and things. Like it's just a perfect play space for her, and she loves it.
Yeah. Speaking of putting a lot of time into things, so being that I'm now an esports commentator, one of the main things that we commentate over are fighting games, as well as like Super Smash Brothers, some Halo, some Call of Duty, FIFA, that sort of thing. Recently commentated over Gran Turismo Sport. That was actually kind of fun. But fighting games is kind of our like main shtick. And so one of the things that I've been doing is learning a lot about fighting games in general and specific like mechanics and information about all the different games that we play at the Black Ice Space. And so I just got my new fight stick. I'm going to learn some fight stick stuff so that all of my control schemes are just all the same. So I'm trying to like level the playing field for myself. And I'm learning like so many games that it's ridiculous. Like I've learned the basics of Melty Blood Type Lumina, which I think is really good. Guilty Gear Strive, which I also think is incredible. Street Fighter V, Tekken 7. I went back to Soul Calibur 2, which you can play on the Xbox One, by the way. Play Soul Calibur 2. That game is incredible. It's so good. And so I'm just like exploring the fighting game genre in literally all capacity. Like, I have spent so much time watching video essays about here's some weird shit that this one random fighting game did that nobody knows about. And I think it's super cool and fascinating. So that's the other thing I've been exploring.
Very cool. Yeah, I've definitely been sitting there watching you occasionally get your butt whooped on online Street Fighter.
Occasionally. It's like 90% of the time. But I love doing that because you don't really like give much of a shit about fighting games, but you're immediately invested in what I'm doing sometimes. Like, we were playing last night. I was running Noctis on Tekken 7. I play him like a Soul Calibur character. And so I'm like learning this new stick. And when it would get really, really close or matches would just... I would squeak out by the like skin of my teeth or whatever. Joe'd be like, "Oh, that was really cool."
Well, I like also have to be like, he does the exact same move every start. You got to find a counter to that because he doesn't change it. And then like sometimes just having that extra voice helps because you're invested in trying to learn this stick. And I'm like, he's doing the same move every time. If you can counter that, you can stop that initial damage you're taking at the start of every round.
Those sort of interactions are really interesting to me. Like, I'm fascinated by player psychology, and now that I'm watching and like interacting with all these really high level players in these games, it's just a playground for me. Like, I'm having so much fun with it.
Yeah. But video games aren't the only thing that we do here at Forever Classic Games. We're generally like just kind of geeky folks, right? Like we love beyond just the video game aspect of the culture that we are part of. So what are some of your guys' favorite geeky moments of 2021?
I'll start. So I talked about this, I think, in a previous episode of the podcast, as well as the guest appearance on the Here's Johnny episode that I was on about Blood Sea. Really cool episode. But I have been reading Dune with me and my girlfriend Gina, and we went and saw the movie in IMAX, and then we proceeded to go home and watch it like 4 or 5 more times on HBO. Like, Dune is like this whole new sci-fi world. It's got some issues, but it's just like fun to be in a like creative space that has existed for a really long time that people have been playing around in and for like decades. And so I'm coming into this with like brand new eyes, and it's really interesting to me. So Dune is probably like the creative highlight as far as like a like fantasy world or setting that I've just never interacted with. I really had a lot of fun like reading I've read the first 2 books, and we watched the movie, and I'm really excited to see where that second film is going to go because the sound design, the set design, the costumes, all of that was just incredible.
I found it to be an incredibly well-made movie with some of the most unsatisfying like conclusion, because the conclusion of like you didn't know there was going to be a part 2 until the end of part 1, and I was like, all
Yeah.
right, because nothing gets resolved, which is fine. Like, I'm looking forward to the next one, but since they didn't make them like together, it's gonna be
Right.
a while for part 2.
Which is unfortunate.
Right, and it was almost like, it's kind of like they were really banking on its success and reception to fund a part 2. So it was entirely possible that people just missed this for, like, despite it being really good, because there's plenty of really good things out there that people just miss. And then the studios are like, you know what? I don't know if part 2 is worth investing in because part 1 didn't do very well. And so we just had like half of a great movie.
Hopefully that's not the case, but regardless,
I don't think so. I think
the books are fun.
Yeah.
If not really weird in points. So I'm getting ready to start the third one, and it's an interesting world to hang out in.
How about for you, Zach? What are some of your geek highlights?
My geek highlight for the year would probably have been going to Otakon in DC.
Hell yeah.
It was pretty excellent. It was the first major con in the middle of the pandemic stuff that DC opened up and allowed. The mayor was kind of in tears being able to be like, thank you, because it went well. The whole weekend was really nice. Lots of really good food.
I remember those photos.
Yeah, some really excellent cosplays there. Got to check out a couple indie people in the indie booth room. They were really fun to check out the games that they'd been doing and were working on. Had in like early alphas where they were just literally like just starting their games. Yeah, I don't know how much more to elaborate on it. Me, Toast, and Izzy went up and we had a blast. It was a really great weekend. I was basically cosplay help for them.
Yeah. I almost got to go to that. Like, there's a couple things that if they would have fallen into place just a little differently, I would have been with you. So hopefully we'll all get together for an event sometime soon. Speaking of cons, I got to go to 2D Con here in Minneapolis. I spent 3 days there. Nerdy performed. Got to chat with him. Always a pleasure, of course. Got to watch some high-level Smash play. This is actually where I met the Black Ice people and, like, hung out with some of their players. Me and he goes by the name Code Zero. His name's Vic. He's one of our tech guys. Exceptionally cool person. But we actually met through the Soul Calibur tournament and like had a really good set as a Nightmare Mirror match. And so that whole like weekend was kind of just like a launch pad for what I'm doing currently, and hopefully that continues over the next few months. But yeah, 2D Con was cool. And then following that, we had the Black Ice Grand Opening, which was like a bunch of money they put into the prize winnings. There was a lot of really good competition. It was a super fun weekend. I was there as a videographer, but I did do some commentating work, and I eventually just became a commentator. And it was a really cool experience, and I hope we get back to that because it's been cold. You know, finals are going on, so a lot of our players and guests like just don't have the capacity to come down. And then with COVID kind of ramping up again, it's difficult. But we're looking into some online events here and there, and it should be a lot of fun.
Sweet. I've kind of got a batch of highlights, geek highlights. As usual, my 24-hour charity stream was a ton of fun. Basically, just seeing how many Uncharted games I could get through in 24 hours. You know, and then of course me basically losing my brain for the last like 3 hours, which is what happens every year.
Especially when you're given all those push-ups at the end.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He yawned. Better give him 20 push-ups. For like the next 2 days, I was like, man, why do I hurt so much? And then like on the third day, I was like, oh yeah, I did like 150 push-ups.
That's one way to get into shape.
There's an actual play Dungeons and Dragons podcast I've been listening to that had its finale this year. So like listening through all of that was a ton of fun. So the first campaign of Dungeons and Daddies has wrapped. If you haven't started listening to it, the first like campaign is over, so you could just like start it and end it now without having to worry about waiting for next episodes. Absolutely worth listening to. One of the funniest and most enjoyable, entertaining podcasts I've ever listened to. It's so funny. And then sitting and watching and analyzing movies and shows with, like, on the couch down here with Alex has been a highlight of my year, because it's just kind of like, otherwise it's just me like watching things by myself, but being able to like engage in that conversation and like critically evaluate things.
It's so much fun.
I've never been to the movie theater this many times in a year in my entire life, but taking advantage of those $5 Tuesdays at our local theater has been amazing with our friend Dave.
Yep.
And, you know, seeing every superhero movie that came out this year.
Everything Marvel we've went to. We've watched all the Disney episodes mostly together.
Yeah.
Even the Star Wars stuff too, we've watched together mostly.
And then me and a friend have an annual tradition now where him and I and then our daughters all go up to my family cabin for like a big long 3-day weekend in the summer. And the kids swim and play games and like run around and go crazy and bug each other. And then him and I basically do nothing but play a board game for 3 days straight. And this year we played Descent: Journeys in the Dark, which is this adventure cooperative like game where you fight monsters and you build these like 3D sets out of cardboard, and the miniatures are incredible. And I actually got to work on the animated cutscenes for the game, for the app that drives the game and tracks all your inventory and health and things like that. And it was just one of my favorite things to do now is when we get to do that and just like set up this game and play it for 3 days straight. But that was basically my geeky moments of the year.
There's one that I want to touch on very, very briefly because it's still fairly fresh and hasn't hit like streaming services. But Spider-Man No Way Home is probably one of the best Marvel movies created. It's really, truly exceptional, and it's making money hand over fist. And I hope
I saw it twice, and I kind of want to see it again.
Yeah, like it is exceptional. I think it leans maybe like in the long term, like it leans heavily on nostalgia of the other films, but it's still just a really well designed movie, and it's got a lot of great character moments across the board. So if you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home and you like Spider-Man in general, I think it's worth seeing. Even if you're not invested in the MCU as much as we are.
It's worth it to see Willem Dafoe as the Goblin again.
Yes.
Like that's not
spoiling. Incredible.
That's not spoiling anything because he's in the
trailer. Yeah.
But yeah, he's Green Goblin again, and his performance is chilling. It's so
cool.
good. Like I wasn't sure how it was gonna go, because it's been a long time since he played that role, but he nailed it. He was clearly excited to return to it and give it another go.
Yeah, so those are some of our favorite geeky moments of 2021. Let's look forward to 2022. Yeah. Clearly, there's some really excellent games, especially, that have been pushed into this year that we're extremely excited about. We mentioned earlier that we're all kind of fascinated with Pokemon Legends Arceus. So it looks like it has some Monster Hunter influence. And you know how I feel about Monster Hunter, so we'll see. It comes out at the end of the month.
Now I just want a game where you just like climb on a Giratina and just stab it in the eye.
Yeah, Shadow of the Colossus style. We'll have some Shadow of the Colossus content coming up soon. But I'd say the like biggest release throughout the year, except for maybe this next one, is Elden Ring. Elden Ring recently got a big test period, kind of like a little demo. I say little, but it was like the potential for 10 hours of play was there, and people like there were conversations on the various podcasts that I listened to. So Waypoint Vice, Kind of Funny, the What's Good Games, like all the major kind of game industry chats, all of them were like, can I choose the Elden Ring demo as game of the year? Because it's really exceptional.
It reminds me of a couple years ago when we were like, the Monster Hunter World demo was my game of the year.
Or when PT came out and we're like, well, that's game of the decade. But Elden Ring, I'm super, super looking forward to. I want like a From Software game with a little bit more direct storyline, and I think that's what we're getting. And it also seems like they're pulling back just a touch on the difficulty and opening up the environments a little bit more. So I'm really pumped for Elden Ring. It's the only thing I've pre-ordered right now, and I'm stoked.
I've never been super interested in the Dark Souls games, but I have enjoyed Bloodborne and Sekiro. So I'm excited what they do with a little bit more of like a high fantasy setting rather than a dark fantasy setting. Like,
Sure.
I think there'll still be dark elements, but it's going to be like featuring a lot more traditional elements seen in like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, that like the like castles and high fantasy, like those elements are going to be present there. And some of that is definitely from Martin's influence because he's one of the head writers on it, right?
He worked really closely with him. I don't know
Yeah.
if he's credited as like head writer, but they worked in cooperation with him
He's
for like some
helping
of the world design and stuff.
drive that narrative, which
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about. I've never really gotten
Oh,
into the
I'm
show.
sure when it comes out, we'll all be playing it. Me and Zach in particular will.
I'm just
really
going to let
dive
you
into
buy a
that one.
copy and then play yours.
That's fine. I'll get it on the PS5. We'll have a rip roaring great fucking time with it, man. Like, I'm super pumped.
For me, I basically have one game on my list of like anticipated. Like, there's plenty of games coming out next year that I'm sure going to be good. I'm excited about, but there's one that I'm basically guaranteed going to buy, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge. I am
It looks so
hyped
cool
for this game, and like, as someone whose like first video game ever was Turtles in Time. Like, the first video game I ever played was Turtles in Time. And I have a copy for Super Nintendo. I've played it with Little Gamer. For Christmas, I got a countercade arcade cabinet of Turtles in Time and the Ninja Turtles arcade game. Like, to have all of that in my possession, and then next year having, or 2022, having this new beat 'em up coming out for Ninja Turtles that looks stunning. I'm so stoked for Shredder's Revenge.
It's also by Tribute Games, who did Panzer Paladin, which is a game that we enjoyed. They did Flint Hook. They also did another kind of old school style platformer. So they're that, like, they're kind of in the sense of like Way Forward and like Emu in them. Like, they're doing these kind of retro inspired, whether art style or game design, but like taking that to the next level. And so it's like right up our alley when it comes to Forever Classic Games, and I'm personally very excited about this one as well. We'll be doing co-op. Me and Joe will, like, for certain.
Yeah.
If it has online co-op, we'll pick up Zach, we'll pick up Justin or
I
somebody.
don't think it has
like,
a hard
oh my
release date yet, but
no,
I
it's
do
just
have it
slated
on
for
the
2022.
Yeah. I think might be narrowed down to Q1 2022, but I'm not 100% certain. But I have it scheduled later in the year for me to do a Ninja Turtles themed episode of Daddy Gamer,
Should be a lot of
where
fun.
I'm gonna like go through and talk about Turtles in Time. I've got the Game Boy game in right here, like that's based off of like kind of that beat 'em up style, but on the go, and then the arcade cabinet. Like, I'm gonna basically do a deep dive into Ninja Turtles with Little Gamer and make an episode about it.
We gotta watch a bunch of movies and like cartoons and stuff too. So that's coming to Switch and Steam. I have also personally, as of yesterday, reached out to the previous press people that got us Panzer Paladin. So I'm hoping that not only we can get hopefully early copies or like a preview event, but I want to interview these people because this project obviously means a lot to Joe, means a lot to me as somebody who grew up with the Turtles. I love this type of design in the game industry, so we're really looking forward to this.
Yeah, this has been a year of Ninja Turtles for me, apparently, because I finally got a Super Nintendo copy of Turtles in Time. I got the arcade cabinet, and there's currently an ongoing comics run that's Ninja Turtles that's incredible. The Last Ronin is one of the best Ninja Turtle stories I've ever read. And I'm not someone who typically buys issues of comics, but I've been buying the individual issues of this comic.
That's so cool. Zach, what are you looking forward to, man?
There's 4 things I'm looking forward to. Silly one is I'm looking forward to Rumbleverse.
Okay, yeah. I've seen this.
Yes, it just looks like wrestling, like brawling, cartoony style game in a sort of battle royale format. So you're doing these like super wrestler moves around a city, fighting people until you're the last person, winning essentially their version of a Royal Rumble in a city. With new opponents, it looked like coming in mid-match, maybe. I don't know, because that's what it looked like in the trailer. but it looks exciting. It looks fun, silly, lighthearted, lots of battle. And I'm a fan of battle royales because I like lots of chaos. So
Yeah.
that's looking right up my alley.
One of the characters looks like a Guilty Gear character, but like fat and shrunk.
Yes.
So
I'm really excited for Bayonetta 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
The trailer looked so fucking cool. I'm really excited for that to come out and continue stuff in that universe.
I love that franchise is basically the like parallel or the like it almost is. It's a satire of Devil May Cry.
Yeah, it's really like
which was
aware
already
that
a
it's
satire
a character action game.
Yeah, which is already like a satire of action games because it just like leans
Mm-hmm.
into that heavy masculinity, but then Bayonetta leans into the heavy femininity, and it's just like I wasn't sure how I was going to enjoy those games, but I would probably put Bayonetta 3 on my list too. Like I just found myself really enjoying it and just finding those games over the top hilarious.
I'm just glad that it's
And
confirmed
badass.
coming out this year. At least for now.
So then the other two is one, I'm looking forward to Sifu. I really want to play it. It looks really cool. And in the fact that it like losing in your run doesn't like isn't the same as losing a life. You age. And you age for double the times you've died. So you start off at like 20. So when you die, fail, whatever, you age a year. And then the next time you die, you age 2 years. The next time you die, you age 4 years. The next time you die, you age 8 years. So each time you're learning the combat through your wave that you're going through. And it's awesome. I think it's a really cool mechanic. I'm really excited to see more about it because there's not been a whole lot about it on my radar, but I'm excited to dig deeper into it.
People recently got a hold of like the beta for it and said it was really good.
Good. That's great to hear. And then finally is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I'm really excited for that, actually.
I'm not a big Borderlands guy. I kind of look forward to maybe jumping in with that with you because there's some really fun designs in there.
Everything about Borderlands is something that I would like, but there's something about the art style that screws with my color blindness. And even on colorblind mode, I have no depth perception in those games. So I like don't see enemies until they're basically on top of me. Because I'm like, oh, what's that? And I'm looking, and then suddenly they're there beating the crap out of me, and I'm like, well, I like can't play this game.
Oh, yeah, this is really bright and vibrant, at least looking so far.
Yeah,
and being taken place in the D&D world of Tiny Tina, doing a D&D campaign again is really exciting.
It's definitely a game I'll want to maybe get a shot at playing a demo or like playing someone else's copy before I invest money in it myself, just because of my experience with the past Borderlands games. But like I said, the humor in it, even like when I look at stills of the art style, it's something I like. I think it's pleasant to look at, but it's literally just something about the art style screws with my depth perception, and I just like cannot discern enemies from backgrounds as easily unless they're like the background's blue and the enemies are orange.
That's fair. I'm just most excited about it to see Mr. Torque be a bard. Fucking loud ass, obnoxious Mr. Torque was great in the one-off campaign. I can't even remember what they called it.
Ooh, I have it in my library. Hang on.
I do too. But it was awesome. That was awesome. So seeing him be a full-fledged character.
Assault on Dragon Keep.
Assault on Dragon Keep. That's it.
Which they released as a free, like, once this game was announced as a separate game, they released that, like, DLC section of Borderlands as, like, a standalone thing.
Is that in 3?
2.
It was in 2.
Oh.
It was that big of it. Like, when that DLC came out, people were ecstatic about it, and it's hailed as, like, one of the best AAA DLC expansions of the, like, 360 era. So, I mean, it really struck a chord with people. So the fact that they turned it into a full game makes total sense.
Yeah. But that's it from me.
One last game that I want to bring up, and this is mostly because I own a PS5, and that's Horizon Forbidden West. I love Horizon. I've never beaten it, but Forbidden West is coming, and it looks like the graphical showcase that will just blow me away. And I don't really pursue that. It's pretty obvious that I really like retro style games visually and in design, but I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, it's a stunning world. For me playing through the first one, I don't think I've rolled credits on it either. I've enjoyed what I've done. I just other games came up or whatever, and I got distracted and never returned to it. But my father-in-law, I think he considers it like the best game ever made, and he's played through the story and the DLC multiple times. And even though it's going to come to PS4, and he has a PS4 Pro, like he is actively hunting for a PS5 just for this game because he wants to play it at the highest thing. But he doesn't even have like a 4K TV yet, so it's like it's going to be a major investment for him to get the most out of his experience with that. But I'm excited to see what he thinks of it, and I hope that it's a great experience for him, because sometimes a franchise will change just enough where he's like, oh man, This is similar to how people who loved The Last of Us didn't love Last of Us Part 2. Like, it just wasn't for everybody, and like there was enough difference there that it ruined it for some people. So I hope that it can continue his joy of gaming in that way, because he's like
clearly
66.
We're gonna get which is really cool. I love hearing about people who are older or really young. Like the range and type of people who play games is fascinating.
His PSN name is Lethal Grandpa.
Amazing. I didn't know that. I will have to add him on PlayStation next time I get the chance. That is incredible.
I think there might be a number or two in there, so don't go just adding every Lethal Grandpa, but I'll see if I can. He doesn't go.
I was going to say, it would have been amazing if he'd have ended up with the base Lethal Grandpa. No numbers, like.
This isn't a news episode, but tying into Horizon Zero Dawn, PSVR 2 was officially announced, and like we got a trailer for a VR Horizon game. I don't think they've shown off the actual hardware yet. It was just talked about at CES, which happened as we're recording this over the weekend or so. And so that's another potential platform for coverage for us, because I really liked when I had the PSVR. And so I'm interested with the VR too, especially if it connects with the PS5. Yeah. So far, I'm really enjoying the PS5.
I think they may have revealed what the controllers might look like what you're holding, but that might have just been like a fan like mock-up or like prediction.
Sure, yeah. We've got specs and stuff and some IGN coverage, so there's information out there. Yeah. VR is going to be probably a big push because all these companies are putting so much money into the various sort of metaverse adaptations and stuff.
I'm interested in getting into VR, but like the Steam-based one is so expensive.
To me, the most appealing one is the Quest, and it sucks because you need a Facebook account.
Yep, and I deleted my Facebook completely at the end of 2021, and my life has already improved. And I'm not going to start up. I'm like, I don't need to be. I don't need to be in the metaverse.
I would love to specifically play Resident Evil 4 VR, which Justin tells me is great.
Yeah,
so
I think
really want to jump into that.
Stop Skeletons from Fighting also really, really liked it. So
shout outs to Derek and Grace. I love those folks. They're super fun. I listen to their podcast now. They're great.
Yeah, I don't think I'll go back and listen to old episodes, but I think I'm going to start catching them weekly because
they're fun.
They're good conversation.
Grace puts an incredible amount of work into that production. But let's talk about some of the just general goals that we have for 2022. I mean, we do have a tendency, at least I do, of I famously kind of overpromise, but these are a couple things that are more broad that I hope to do for the year involving games. And so these are some of the goals that I hope to jump into. One, first and foremost, I want to improve generally in fighting games, whether that be Tekken or whatever. But I just want to like learn how to be in that circle more, because I've had so much fun with that community. I just got that new arcade stick. We've got the II arcade, which might have a fighting game or two coming to it eventually. And Soul Calibur 2, like I said, is on the Xbox One, and I've been playing it in my spare time, and I really like that game. I've played through it on every single platform, so I'd love to get into like competing a little bit. And also that will just generally help in my day job. So really want to do that.
Anything else?
I was gonna alternate back and forth.
Okay. Fair enough. For me, I think one of my biggest goals is to generally waste less time. Pursue my passions, which mainly includes making more like Daddy Gamer episodes, which I haven't been able to invest in like a year or a year and a half at this point, maybe even 2 years, just because with the pandemic, doing homeschool and like fixing a house, I just didn't have time or energy to invest in creative endeavors like outside of my freelance work.
Yeah.
And then occasionally streaming, but even the streaming got put on hiatus for a long time as I built this office. And like one of the first steps I've taken towards wasting less time is deleting Facebook. Like completely. I'm off the platform because I would just spend time scrolling through the news feed, and I would rarely walk away from doing that daily activity multiple times a day. I would rarely walk away from it happier than when I went in. So it's definitely was something I was doing in my daily routine that was actively making my life worse in terms of mental health and things like that. And so deleting that, so I haven't had Facebook in 9 days. I'm just trying to be generally more aware of my time and being able to invest in things, because I just can't get stuff done if I'm just sitting on my phone instead of reading a book or writing a script for Daddy Gamer, or even I would value watching a movie over just sitting there looking at Reddit, because at least if I'm watching a movie, I'm experiencing some sort of narrative.
Yeah. That's something that I've pivoted towards the last half of this year. Like I am reading more books like you would like to do. I am trying to like pay more attention and just generally be on my phone less. Like I fall into the trapping of scrolling through Twitter and fucking around on there for hours at a time. And when you start become like aware of that, and maybe instead of like just aimlessly scrolling through Twitter, you jump into Twitter with a plan. Like, oh, I want to specifically jump into this space, which I actually really like spaces. A lot of our peers and colleagues are using it to pretty interesting degree. So if I see like fellow peers in the game industry talking about a specific topic, I'll jump into that space and listen for a while. And the other thing with improving fighting games is that's kind of like a good fallback to like, I get, what do you call it? Like choice anxiety, where I have so many things that I could be doing and could be working on, and so many different like responsibilities and things that I've promised and that sort of thing, that it kind of like shuts me down. But if I just jump into a fighting game for like 30 minutes, I feel accomplished. I'm learning, I'm practicing.
Choice paralysis.
Choice paralysis, sure. But that's something that like it's just like a mental shift, right? Like, and having like all the games that I need to be reviewing like readily available, because I just got the new laptop. And so that was the whole endeavor with Razer, and like the first one I bought didn't work so well, so they sent me a new one and I'm using it. But I have access to my Steam library in my bedroom because this is downstairs, and I don't have to like sit at my chair to play PC games or whatever. And so just kind of being conscious of that, I think, is a really helpful skill, because in this day and age we have so many things vying for our attention, and the economy is really struggling in general, and people like me and Joe are just constantly trying to figure out where to get the next paycheck, whether it's a particular client or project or whatever. And so that like we have a tendency to like just have too many things going on, right? And there's not enough like schedule or routine. So that's something that I also want to work on this year.
How about you, Zach? Do you got any goals for 2022?
My real goal for 2022 right now is to get comfortable with doing video editing and actually create video content. Took the first couple steps of that, trying to get us a TikTok set up, trying to figure out what to do with it and how to do it effectively. If it's more effective to maybe make it on a computer and then port the video over to the phone and download it and upload it, or to make it in the app, versus, just trying to figure out what's going to work best and be easiest to do. I don't know, because I'm very not versed in video editing very well.
It's a challenge. For me, it's always like I get the concept of video editing, but when things don't work as intended, I can't figure out like the troubleshooting side of it.
Well,
you're going to tell me to pivot to Adobe.
Well, no, I'm going to say you live with a video editor, so just ask me.
which I've done. But
and same
you
goes
know,
for
just
you, Zach. Like, if you have questions about, like, or if you like make something and want some feedback, shoot it my way. I'll give you some feedback and help you improve. Like, I'm not gonna benefit from it's not like industry secrets. Mine.
Yeah.
Like I'm not holding on to anything, because I'm sure if I ever had a question about something that you specialize in, you would be available to help me in that same way. So
Absolutely.
I think we're all kind of like that, not only with our particular skills, but with the Forever Classic community in general. Like, people who want to get into games media, we will point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
We will help out as much as we can. We'll connect you with particular individuals or, whatever. If you've got something you're pitching to somebody, we can take a look at your pitch. And we can do that sort of community level thing as just a kind gesture. Like, that's not something you have to purchase from us in order to get that
I've
information.
definitely
We're
given
very
feedback,
open.
Given feedback to some of our fans who have YouTube channels and stuff and want to get better at it, or like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing in After Effects. How do you do that? Like, it's super easy to just sit down for 5 minutes and just show you, rather than you spending 2 hours bashing your head against the software. Just ask someone who already knows how to do it.
And we, in general, just like, we're very open and helpful for a lot of different things. And so if you ever do have a question, just let us know, and we'll try to, connect you with either we don't know or, whatever. We'll help out as much as we can.
One of the keys I would say to my success as like an animator and video editor is I know someone who already knows how to do this, and I have their phone number. I just call them, or I send them an email and be like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. If for some reason, Google isn't pulling up the right tutorial I'm looking for, it just isn't making sense. Like, not being afraid to ask questions has gotten me a lot further in life than trying to just waste a whole day trying to solve it myself if I just can't. Like, I always try to first, so I'm not constantly calling people, but every now and then I'm just like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing, but I need to know what I'm doing, so let's figure this out and figure out who I know.
And that's something, like, with you trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do with our TikTok, like, that's an area that I have literally no knowledge in, and I've always struggled with short-form content, so it's been a really interesting thing to see, like, what sort of ideas you come up with, and then I think I created a couple TikToks that did okay, like, just joke quick videos or whatever.
And those do really well.
Yeah.
I am not the meme guy.
No, but having that as, like, some sort of another way for us to interact with that audience is probably worth the effort. So I get it. Like, I don't know.
And then I think for both Alex and I, this is my first year doing it, but Extra Life, raising money for children's hospitals. I am doing it via Daddy Gamer, so live streams and videos will have links to donate to the Gillette's Children's Hospital in St. Paul here in Minnesota, and I've got a goal of $1,000. I typically have only done the one 24-hour charity stream that goes towards one specific cause. In the past, I've done human trafficking, but this year, with the ease of Extra Life, because they're just so good at what they do in setting up donation pages and supporting their streamers and the people doing the raising, that I'm in a position where I can just kind of promote it year round. And so for the year of 2022, I have a goal of $1,000. I think that's reasonable for a year round thing. I will still do my 24-hour charity stream towards the same cause. And we'll probably have some end of the year donation prizes available. I don't have anything promised at this point, but
it's something that I think we both would want to just do a little bit more of, like doing Extra Life and working with Andrew specifically. So shout outs to Andrew Peggs over at Mariners Rock, also a huge Extra Lifer. Recently got Twitch partnership.
Didn't he break $25,000 raised last year?
He's one of the prominent fundraising entities for the state of West Virginia.
I would say for Extra Life in general, it's as an individual creator, not a team, not an entity,
as part of a brand or anything. No, he's one guy.
He's not a celebrity, so he doesn't already have I'm sure it would be super easy for like Ninja to do one stream and then
Sure.
raise a bunch of money. But for someone who's just like a regular guy like us, raising money around, he has those connections in the video game space to get like sick ass prizes for people who donate.
Yep.
To raise that much money is astounding.
He proves that with effort you can do something in your community.
Yeah.
And he just took his hobby and incorporated it into charity.
Yeah, it's
is what he
basically
did.
a second job for him, and he doesn't get paid for it at all. Well, maybe now he does because he's a partner.
Sure, there are
But-
benefits, obviously. You know, you get a little more Twitch viewers and that
Right.
sort of thing. Those go hand in hand, and he gets a bigger network and all that sort of stuff. But in general, he is helping that community.
Yeah, it's a second
so-
job, and almost everything goes towards Extra
Yeah.
Life.
But I think in general, both of us, not only as Forever Classic Games, but just as individuals, would just like to do more charity work in general, and just raising awareness and getting people to donate and making those drives. We do eventually want to do like a fundraising thing for Forever Classic as a brand, and so you might see that on the schedule later in the year. But and that would be a completely separate thing. But in general, we just always have an Extra Life link on our Twitch pages and such. And so if you want to support that charity, it's usually set to go to the West Virginia Hospital. Joe's, of course, will be going to one here in Minnesota. Zach, if you wanted to do one, you could make it do whatever you want, but it's up to you.
Yeah, I got to figure that out.
Yeah. Personally, I'm going to always raise for West Virginia because it's one of the like lower earning states and they could always use the extra money. And that's kind of me like giving back to my original community. I lived there for 25 years. But this next goal is, it's got nothing, there's no like bigger cause to it or anything. These are just some games that I have not played that I want to sit down and finish. Final Fantasy VI has eluded me my entire life. And with the release of the Pixel remasters, I want to jump in and just finish it. And so that comes out in July, so I have a lot of time before I even take on this journey. But I feel like I want to go through
This is
Final Fantasy VI.
my list of all the games that I've started but still need to finish.
Yeah.
That I've written down for finishing in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, in the immediate future, Final Fantasy VII DLC, maybe replaying Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS5. That's kind of what I'm looking at. But we lost Joe. He's back.
Discord crashed on me.
Weird. But yeah, in general, Final Fantasy VI is something that I actually want to like. I want to do it like I did Chrono Trigger. Like, I spent the time, I put in the effort, I researched it, I wrote about it. Twice, and I think about it now a little bit more differently, and so I want to do Final Fantasy VI. It's either going to be the Pixel remaster or the Game Boy Advance version, maybe a ROM hack to get some different types of music.
I mean, I do have the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, which does have it on there.
Right,
So
right, and we can stream that too. So this
It's-
could be a stream thing. I'm not saying it will be,
Boop.
but personally, I want to beat Final Fantasy VI before 2022 is over with.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I either want to finish the Pokemon Crystal ROM hack that we played eons ago. I don't remember the name of it. I wrote about it on, I think it was Pokemon Prism, but it's a crystal hack. It was really, really cool. I either want to go back to that hack and restart it and play it again or finish it, or I want to just play Crystal because I really miss that era of like Game Boy Gen 2 Pokemon, and that's a really easy stream to do. People like Pokemon, people like watching Pokemon, so that's something that I really want to do. And real quick, as a stream idea, I'm kind of interested in going through the DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3 because I've been watching Gina play it, and I kind of miss that combat system. And the DLC is just combat. So if people want us to like see me struggle against organization members that are super hard, let me know, and I will jump into that on normal difficulty or whatever.
my review of the DLC is available on foreverclassicgames.com.
Spoiler alert, he didn't like it that much. I probably won't either, but if it goes on sale or if I catch it on sale, I want that, like, sit down for an hour, try it, do it as a stream. Like, that could be really cool, I think.
I didn't like it for the price that they sold it at. If it
Sure,
was
yeah.
even half the price they were selling it at, I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah, so that could be, those are a couple things I'm thinking about as far as, like, stream content, aside from showing off indies that we get the opportunity to, and showing off, like, cool projects. Like, the IR Arcade build was a really fun stream. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I've got a way to stream Game Boy cartridges now. Like,
Yeah, we have all sorts of random little tools.
It's going to be a lot of fun. But we have been going for like 2 hours.
Yeah, it's time to wrap up,
and
guys.
we are at the end of our episode document.
True.
So, thank you everyone for watching. Welcome to this new chapter and this next age of Forever Classic Games. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for the future support. We're really looking forward to 2022. We're back, baby.
Before we jump into this last summary statement, don't forget to let the stream running a little bit if anybody has questions.
Okay.
I don't anticipate that to be the case this time around, but
right.
But yeah, we've put in the effort, we've put in the time, we're an official business. We can start conducting business to make this an actual thing. Of course, that goes in tandem with we're nothing without our fans and our readers. So if you do like what we do, check us out. If you want to send us a donation or whatever that'll help out the company in general, we have avenues for that. We have a Patreon, which will include non-ad versions of the podcasts as usual. Hopefully we'll kind of find some more incentives to figure out what we might do with Patreon. But in general, now's a great time to support Forever Classic Games, and we would really love to see that.
And we will appreciate every bit of it so much.
Yeah. So as co-owner, I am extremely excited to be here. I love this brand. I love these people that I work with, and I'm excited to take it forward. How much farther can we push this? Where's the ceiling?
We are officially out of restructuring and into production, which is awesome. But thanks everyone for watching. Until next time, play some games.